Builder Worlds. This is a wargaming philosophy conversation. Deep, huh? No models tonight, not in this model. This is the first of what might become a short series of videos about wargaming. How I do it, why I do it, how we are successful with my group of friends. The best ways to approach a wargame, in my opinion, in our opinions, that kind of thing. It's really an idea of a starting point, if you like, somewhere where we can jump off from. I sat down with the guys that I game with, play B&B with and various other things, and we chatted through some of this, and I've chatted through this with other people. This video's come about because different people in different circles that I'm kind of like moving asked me about it, asked me about gaming and how you cope with it, and in some cases it was parents of young people who are neurodivergent, who are wargamers, and that's about how they cope with all the different stresses and the social contracts of wargaming. And in other cases it was people at clubs and shows, at Salute this year, and also at the Newbury and Reading Wargame Show. I had a conversation about some of this as well, so I thought it would be interesting if I just chucked some of this down on a video and started up a conversation, and thought it would be where we could go with it, see what you think as people who watch this video. So I hope you do watch this video and you watch through, and you kind of like have some opinions, and there are things you want to add or argue against or whatever else, do so in the comments down below. Before we start, I need to thank Ted and Mike and Gary and John and Alex and Aaron and Harry, who are the guys I usually play Boroughs and Badgers with. We are a group, I suppose, not really a club, because it's mostly a closed group. We're kind of like an invite-only group, and we go by kind of like the moniker of Spirit of the Game, because that's how we like to play our games. It came about because the various guys wanted to have a go at playing Boroughs and Badgers and knew that I'd make a lot of terrain, and we tend to use my terrain and play various games. They've been very sporting chaps, and we've had a good laugh. They've come along and supported me, actually helped run games for me at Salute for the last couple of years, and we've had a good laugh. But it was one of those things that I've been able to include all of them in these videos. I wanted to include them all in this first video that we made, but they actually turned out to be too nice to actually get to the point of this video. So before we get on to successful gaming and how you have a good time wargaming, I thought this video we'd use it as a bit of a cathartic kind of Christmas kind of get it all off your chest kind of experience, because this video is about wargaming pet peeves.
Mr. Magrathea, what's your pet peeve when it comes to gaming?
I've got loads.
Okay, so some of this we filmed at our regular gaming location, a place called Time and Space, in Battlesbridge in Essex. You may have seen bits of it on various films and videos. Time and Space is a wonderful space that is available for hire to some extent. I say it's wonderful because I did the kind of like the creative work down there. I was the art director, the designer for the internal build. I had other people who helped me out do the actual building, but it's a really cool, completely unique space. It's a steampunk kind of room, based on the idea of the Nautilus. And we play games of Boroughs and Badgers and other things there whenever we can, normally on a Tuesday night. But recently, instead of playing games, I got the guys just to sit around and drink a beer, a cup of tea, bring cookies, and we chatted. We talked about pet peeves, what annoys us about wargamers, possibly sometimes about other members of the group, but in general also about our experience with playing other people. And then also it became, how do you have a good night? So there's going to be the odd clip in this video, which is probably only just me and Ted talking about some of our peeves, because a lot of the other guys, they got the other end. They did the kind of like the nicey stuff. So look, I've got a list here. I've made a list of pet peeves. There might be other ones there, so I'm going to make a start. Let's talk about them.
I'm getting old now and I can't see dice across the table.
Okay, so my first pet peeve, and I'm going to try not to make this sound like a grumpy old man video, but I'm afraid it's going to be a little bit. Now, this is a hobby that involves dice. D6, D4, D12, D20, depends what game you play, frankly. Warhammer players use D6s, that's it. Burrows and Badgers is a game where Michael Lovejoy set out, I think, to use every polyhedral dice that's available, and that's fine. But there are a number of things that annoy me about dice. First of all, the first thing that annoys me about dice is dice collectors, people who love their dice. I love my dice, I've got to admit, I've got lots of different sets of dice. But the one thing that I find is people who've got funky, cool dice, they like to use them, but it's really annoying. It can really get on my wick. Bottom line,
People who arrive with their fancy schmancy dice that they have to pick up and look at themselves because they can't read the freaking number, that's no good at all whatsoever. So
if you can't clearly see what the score is, if you can't see it and you roll it in front of you and your opponent can't see it either, then don't use those dice. Okay, it's just plain and simple. It's a courtesy thing. It gets right up my wick. If you have to pick up the dice and check it out and look at it and decide whether that's a 6 or a 9 or whatever that number is there, you shouldn't be using those dice in this kind of game, because this is about openness and about making sure that everybody's happy with playing it. Oh, and while we're on dice, how difficult is it to roll dice on a table, right? You need simple rules, dice rolls on a table. And you know what? I used to be dead set against the idea of things like dice towers, but actually, I'm kind of getting more into the idea of dice towers now more than anything else, purely because they give you a definite spot to roll the dice. They could be off the table, they could be on the table. I like dice towers that look like this one. This is one from TT Combat that I'm working on for Carnivale, because it looks like it's part of the scenery. And also, it's got this handy little bit at the bottom, which has got a little wall around it, so you don't even roll across the table. Right? People who make wargaming scenery put a lot of effort and time into their scenery, and what you don't actually want, right, is dice all over the place, knocking into the scenery, thudding all over the place. So keep them contained, roll them in a dice tower, happy days. How difficult is that? And if that means you have to use the cheapy bags of dice you can get from Amazon for like £2 in a little bag, and then all the dice you need, even better. Plain colours, clear to see, dice, simple.
right, my pet peeves are people turning up who aren't prepared to play, so they haven't got a written out roster, they don't know where their figures are, they can't find their arse with both hands.
Yeah. We all have busy lives, right? I have a very busy life. It's bonkers. The different kind of things I have to try and squeeze into my life. And doing things like this, making videos, is right down the list. My work is demanding. My family life is complicated, busy, so not fun. I have a limited amount of time for playing games. And what I don't need when I get to an evening where I'm going to play games is for my opponent to rock up, not have got sorted out a warband list, which figures they're going to use, or have done all the updates they needed to do. The games we play at our wargaming group are mostly small-scale skirmish games, right? Burrows and Badgers, your warband has no more than 10 figures in general in a warband. How difficult is it to keep that up to date? Well, for some people, pretty tricky. You should rock up and be ready to play. I haven't got time to mess around while you update your roster, fill out a new form, find the figures, okay? It's just kind of drags out the whole experience. We've only got a few hours to play, and if you turn up and you're not ready to play, that's just really dragging down my evening. So pack it in, turn up, be prepared to play. Right, this next one is about behaviour when you're playing games, but I'm not going to explain this. I'm going to let my mate Ted explain this one. Well, I'm not going to tell you, I won't spoil it. Here you go. Ted, what's your pet peeve?
Big pet peeve for me is not being present in a game. So if you are constantly distracted, on your phone, going off and talking to someone else on a different table, especially if it means that you miss your turn or you can't keep track of what you've just done or what your opponent's doing, and you have to keep constantly asking, you know, what's going on, what have you just done, where's your character, because it's, like I said, you're there for a very short amount of time just to play a game. If you're spending a lot of time going off, being on your phone, and it just makes the game really long, it can get quite annoying very often.
Now there is of course one caveat.
about the be present and, you know, phone use and that kind of thing. And that is, of course, quite a few game systems now have digital versions of the rules. You know, so some players are accessing the rules online on their phones. Carnivale, for example, the stats for all of the characters are only seem to be found at the Carnivale website, and you make up your force list and the rest of it. But then again, that comes around to preparedness. Do all that, print it off. You know, it's kind of, yeah, annoying. Personally, I like hard copies of the rules. Even if I've got digital copies of the rules, pretty sure I've got a digital copy of B&B, and I think now I've got a digital one of these as well. Still like having the books. But in fairness to players with their phones and other mobile devices, they might be in rule books. But even so, you need to spend more time. Being present still actually implies that you need to be more present in the game than you do with a nose in the rule book. So I've just thought I'd chuck this in there after Ted's bit, because I reckon people might make a comment about, oh, well, my rulebook is only available online. Yes, it is, but you know, there's still more time needs to be spent playing on the tabletop than it does. Nose in the rules. Vague gamers, being vague or even cagey about what is on your force. Yeah. When you're playing a game like Burrows and Badgers or Necromunda or something like that, it's rare that you play a completely WYSIWYG game. Yeah, WYSIWYG. For those of you not familiar with the term, WYSIWYG means what you see is what you get. Well, what you see is what you get game is where you look at the figure and the figure has got a bow and arrows and a longsword, and so is the character on the character sheet. That isn't always the case. B&B figures are wonderful models, but they're not very convertible and you don't go around changing them. Back in the day, in the 1990s, the cool thing about Necromunda and about Gork and Walker that came after it was the amount of figure chopping we did when we changed, when we upgraded a character and he got a new weapon. We'd have to go to the point of cutting off one weapon and sticking on another, but it's not necessary. So being vague about who's who on the tabletop is not respectful towards the other person you're playing with. It's just bloody annoying, alright? And also being vague about the characteristics or the special rules that apply to those particular characters. Again, and then also vague memories of which bits of the rules you're going to adhere to tonight. So, or you remember all the bonuses for your characters, but you kind of get hazy about some of the negatives, some of the penalties that those characters have accrued over time, like brain injuries or various other bits and pieces. So, being open, don't be vague. Power gamers. Gotta get on my wick. Wargaming's a really broad church. By that I mean there are lots of different ways of doing it. And there's nothing to say that what I'm talking about here and what we're going to talk about in the next video is the correct way. It's just the way that, in this case, things annoy me, and in the next video, how we as a group of players find that we can have a successful evening, right? But power gaming is not my thing. When I used to work for Games Workshop in the mid-90s, we used to describe power gamers as beardy players. Not because they necessarily had a beard, but there was a lot of beard scratching. There are some people, there's some players who get a great deal of enjoyment out of breaking a system, finding the thing that's the absolute power thing, the thing that does the super thing, the combo. I don't play like that. We play narrative games. We play games that are all about storytelling. It's a collective story experience, and you play stuff because it's cool rather than because it's necessarily always going to win. It doesn't. Sometimes some of our guys take that to the absolute extreme and pick themed warbands that actually turn out to be completely rubbish on the tabletop. They must be disheartening playing with those, but every now and then when they do something cool, it's like, yes. Power gaming is the complete opposite to that. It's about gearing up your guys and working out how the rules go to give you the absolute maximum advantage on the tabletop. I don't play tournaments. and I'd imagine there's quite a lot of tournament gaming that goes on like that. It's like, I suppose, playing Magic the Gathering or other kind of like card games, which are all about combos, but doing it on the tabletop. Now, there's some people out there who probably do like power gaming and working out the uber combinations that you can put together with the army list that presents itself to you. Good for you. But don't turn up and play me, because I can't be asked. That's not my way of playing. I don't find it satisfying to do it, and I don't like it when it happens against me. I think probably because I haven't got the time in my life to sit down and read every rule book to the finest minutiae to find the absolute tweak that zaps somebody. But I want a game where I turn up and we play for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever, and we both have a laugh. Yes, of course, playing the game, you're playing to win. But actually, wiping the other guy off the field with your super combos after a while isn't very satisfying at all. And if your opponent ends up having a crap night, then what's the point? So yeah, power gamers, alright, in my world, it's not a thing. Sorry. Being bloody picky. Yeah, being bloody picky. The social contract, as far as I'm concerned, with wargaming is the fact that it's supposed to be a pleasurable experience. I also like games that tell cool stories. I like games that reward players for doing cool stuff. I get picky with people who are super fussy about how accurate your measuring is. You have to agree where you're measuring from. Is it the centre of a figure? Is it base to base? How does it work? A lot of these games are working on abstract, right? Tabletop is usually completely flat. In real life, it will up and down and dip and curve. You can't measure perfect curves with a tape measure going around corners. You can argue the absolute nth degree about whether a character can see somebody else, or whether a character is stood up and in cover or out of cover. The course the thing is the figure, the little solid lead figure, plastic figure, resin figure, doesn't move. So, players who pick an all-kneeling warband because they think they're going to hide in the cover, oh yeah, no. It's just so annoying. It's an abstract thing. Don't be so bloody picky. Make the game flow. Make it fun. If that guy over there is a quarter of an inch out on his move, but you're going to get a thing happen, then what the hell, go with it. If you can't come to an agreement about whether it is in or whether it's not, pick up a d6 each, roll the dice to the highest score, get wins, whatever they say goes, and then sort it out later. Because inaccurate measurement, picky about whether you can see something or whether it's in cover or whether it's not in cover or whatever else, just completely ruins the game as far as I'm concerned. There are two approaches that I've enjoyed and that I like in game systems that kind of get around this a little bit. In Burrows and Badgers, one of Michael Lovejoy's rules is the fact that if you're touching a piece of cover, you can claim to be in cover, even if the character's actually got complete line of sight, an enemy's got complete line of sight to them, because actually you're in the actual character would be making best use of that cover. It's on a big round base, it doesn't stick really close, so as long as the base is touching, it kind of counts. And you can hide in the middle of nowhere to a certain extent, because the ground goes up and down. There are dips, there are small bushes and things that aren't represented on the tabletop but would be there in real life. And I also like the rule in Carnivale, which rewards the other player when they do something that's cool. Do something cool, do something heroic, let them have a go, because it's got to be better for the game, much better than you being picky about, oh, I don't really think you can do that. What the hell, it's just a game. So yeah, pickiness can clear off. General disrespectful behaviour. That comes in a number of different ways. It's interesting, a number of rulebooks workshop, for example, they kind of have a code of conduct in some of their rulebooks now, which is a bit extreme, You should find a way that's comfortable for playing with you. One of the things is in a friendly group, language needs to be appropriate. But where we play, the odd swear word does come out. Of course it does, because, well, Harry's got Tourette's for a start. But apart from that, some nights it sounds like I've got Tourette's too, and I really haven't. It sums it up. But you've got to make sure that both players are comfortable in that environment.
And also just respect for the other person, for their figures. So it's quite common if you've killed a figure for the other person to just go, oh, I've killed your person, there we go, take off the table. And that can be quite annoying sometimes. There'll be times when you can just say, oh, I can't reach my figure, can you pick that up for me? And that's fine, but it's just that social contract, respecting the other person. It's much easier to do it if there's someone behind the camera you can talk to.
General rule of thumb should be, don't mess around with somebody else's figures. They might ask you to take a figure off the board because they can't reach or whatever else, but yeah, players who crow and make a big fuss about the fact that, oh, this guy's died, haha, take it off and give it to you. Don't do that. That's very, very annoying. Be respectful of my terrain that I've made as well. It's taken me hours. I'm very, very pleased with it. I don't need your dice bouncing around the table and banging into them. I don't need your cans of Coke sitting on them and getting knocked over on them. And I don't need you picking them up by the clearly delicate bits and breaking them either. General level of respect is required. Not that this is not a fair comment from me with the guys I play with or in my gaming group, because they are all super respectful of that kind of thing. So, don't get the wrong idea about the guys that we play with, the guys who appear in these videos. They aren't like that. But that is something that people have spoken to me about, and I know not only does it peeve me, it peeves other people as well. Okay, so look, there you go. Those are some of my pet peeves. They're the ones that I can think of. I've got written down in my notes here. Right, and we talked about as a gaming group. They're probably not all of them, because I didn't want this to turn into just kind of like a video of misery. But I'd be really interested to know what you think. What are your pet peeves? What is it that other players do that really, really annoy you? Gaming styles, when you play. All of these things, the peeves and how people behave when they're playing can be affected by, the type of games you're playing and where you're playing, and whether it's a friendly group, a group at a FLGS, whether it's a tournament, whether it's an open meet, all kinds of things. So loads of things can affect them. But what really gets up your nose, gets up your wick when you're gaming? Don't worry too much about solutions, because we've got another video where my nicely guys all said nicely things that's going to come soon after this, which is about how to have a great night when you're wargaming. That's coming up next. This one is what gets up your wick. Get it off your chest. Write it down in the comments down below. Let's see what you think. Do you agree with mine? My peeves, the peeves in this list here, are not in any particular order. There isn't a ranking between those, and any one of those might happen in a night, and any one of those might not happen in a night. What gets up your nose from a wargaming point of view? Put it in the comments down below. Thanks very much for watching. Watch the next video when it comes out as well. This has been Magrathea Build a World. Good night.